Welcome, my dear listeners, to another heart-stirring journey here on Tales of Love. If you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe and join our growing community of passionate dreamers, believers in love, and seekers of romance. Every story we share is filled with desire, longing, and the beautiful complexity of human connections. So, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready to lose yourself in a tale that will make your heart race and your pulse quicken. Tonight's story is titled, The Husband's Absence, Lonely Wife's Forbidden Affair with Her Coworker Broken Heart Fire. The silence of the house pressed against me more heavily than the darkness itself. My husband, Daniel, had been gone for nearly 3 weeks on another work assignment, and each night the bed beside me felt colder, emptier, like a constant reminder of the void growing between us. His calls came less frequently now, short, distracted conversations squeezed between his endless meetings and travel. I tried to tell myself he was just busy, that the man who once couldn't stop touching me, kissing me, whispering sweet nothings in my ear, still loved me the same. But when night after night passed with nothing but a buzzing phone that never lit up with his name, I felt myself unraveling. Loneliness has a way of sneaking into every corner of your life. I noticed it in the way I lingered too long in front of the mirror, wondering if I was still beautiful to him. I felt it in the ache of my body, the hunger for touch that had gone unfed for too long. And sometimes, late at night, I caught myself whispering his name into the quiet, desperate for some kind of connection. Work was the only thing keeping me sane. The office buzzed with chatter, deadlines, and paperwork. It filled the hours, distracted me. And then there was Ethan. Ethan wasn't new, but I had never really seen him before the way I did lately. He was the kind of man who noticed things. Small things. The way I held my coffee mug too tightly on stressful mornings. The way I sometimes zoned out staring at my computer screen. He'd stop by my desk with a teasing comment, a quiet joke, or simply that warm, steady gaze that made me feel seen. One afternoon, as I struggled with a stack of reports, he leaned against the edge of my desk, his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that looked both strong and gentle. "You're going to drive yourself crazy with all that," he said, a playful grin tugging at his lips. I laughed, shaking my head. "Someone has to keep this place from falling apart." "Maybe," he said softly, "but someone also has to keep you from falling apart." The words lingered between us longer than they should have. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, and for a moment, I couldn't bring myself to look away. His eyes held mine, warm and full of something I hadn't felt in so long, attention. That night, when I lay in bed alone, I replayed the moment over and over. The way his voice dipped lower, the way his smile softened when he looked at me. It was dangerous, I knew. But a part of me that had been numb for so long was suddenly alive again. The following days became a blur of stolen moments. A brush of his hand when passing me a file. His body leaning a little too close during meetings. Shared laughter that felt too private, like a secret only the two of us understood. One evening, I stayed late at the office, drowning in paperwork. To my surprise, Ethan was still there too. The building was quiet, the usual clatter and voices gone. He came over with 2 cups of coffee and sat one beside me. "You look like you could use this," he said, his voice softer now, less playful, more intimate. I smiled, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. "You might just be saving my life right now." He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. "You don't have to do it all alone, you know. You always look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." I swallowed hard. Sometimes it feels that way. His gaze was steady, almost probing. "Where's Daniel these days?" "Still traveling." The mention of my husband's name should have grounded me. It should have reminded me of the vows I had made. Instead, it only made the ache inside me sharper. "Yes," I whispered, my voice catching. "He's always gone." There was silence, heavy and charged. Ethan reached across the desk, his hand brushing against mine, lightly, hesitantly, as if asking for permission. My breath caught in my throat, and I didn't move. The warmth of his touch sent shivers up my arm, awakening something deep inside me. I should have pulled away. I didn't. From that night forward, something shifted. The boundaries between us blurred, the air between us charged with unspoken words and hidden desires. Every smile from him felt like a promise. Every touch felt like a temptation. I told myself it was just harmless flirting, a distraction from the loneliness gnawing at me. But deep down, I knew better. The way my body reacted when he was near wasn't innocent. The way my heart raced when his hand brushed mine wasn't harmless. And one evening, when he walked me to my car, the tension between us became unbearable. We stopped by my car door, the night air cool around us. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, his voice husky when he finally spoke. "Linda," he whispered. My name on his lips felt intimate, electric. "Tell me to stop and I will. But if you don't..." My heart pounded so loudly, I thought he could hear it. The world seemed to fall away until there was only him, his warmth, his closeness, his breath brushing against my skin. And in that moment, I didn't tell him to stop. Her breath caught in her throat as he leaned closer, his eyes locked onto hers as though searching for every secret she had tried to bury. The night air was cool, but his nearness set her skin ablaze, every nerve ending alive and trembling with anticipation. She could have stepped back, could have opened her car door and left, but her body betrayed her with its stillness, her lips parting ever so slightly as if to invite him in. When his mouth finally touched hers, it was not hesitant but desperate, like a dam breaking after too much restraint. The warmth of his lips stole her breath, the taste of coffee still lingering faintly between them. She gasped softly, and he deepened the kiss, one hand cupping her cheek, the other pressing against the car as though to keep her caged in this moment. She felt herself melt against him, her heart pounding so fiercely she thought it might burst. Her fingers clutched at his shirt, pulling him closer, unable to resist the pull that had been building for weeks. When their mouths finally parted, she rested her forehead against his chest, trembling, unable to speak. "Linda," he whispered, his breath ragged. "I've wanted this longer than I should admit." She closed her eyes, torn between guilt and a hunger that refused to be denied. "Ethan, this is wrong." "Maybe," he murmured, tilting her chin back up so their eyes met again. "But it feels more right than anything I've felt in a long time." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, torn between logic and the aching need coursing through her. She should have walked away. She should have told him it couldn't happen again. But when his lips brushed hers once more, softer this time, full of tenderness that her heart had been craving, she didn't resist. That night, she lay awake in her cold bed, replaying every second of the kiss. Her lips tingled, her skin still burning with his touch, her body aching for more. She pressed her face into the pillow, whispering to herself that she had to stop it, that she couldn't let it happen again. But her heart betrayed her, because deep inside, she knew she wanted it to happen again, and more. The following days were torture. Every glance across the office, every casual brush of his hand against hers, every time his voice dipped lower when he spoke to her, they all left her breathless, her body taut with longing. Late one evening, after everyone had left, she found herself alone in the copy room, fumbling with papers when she heard the door click shut behind her. She turned, startled, and found Ethan there, his eyes dark with something raw, something dangerous. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed, stepping closer. Her back pressed against the counter as he approached, her pulse racing wildly. "Ethan, if we keep this up..." He placed his hands on either side of her, caging her in, his breath hot against her ear. "I don't care. Tell me you don't want this and I'll walk out right now." But she couldn't say it. The words stuck in her throat, drowned out by the way her body leaned into his, desperate and trembling. Her silence was answer enough. His lips crashed into hers again, hungrier this time, devouring her in a kiss that stole every ounce of resistance. She moaned softly against his mouth, her hands sliding up his chest, feeling the solid heat of his body beneath his shirt. He pulled her closer, his hands gripping her waist, lifting her onto the counter with ease. Her legs instinctively wrapped around him, drawing him against her as the kiss deepened, every movement desperate and urgent. His hands roamed her back, her sides, tracing every curve as if memorizing her. She gasped when his mouth left hers, trailing down her neck, his breath hot against her skin, making her shiver with every kiss, every graze of his teeth. Her mind screamed that this was forbidden, that she was betraying the vows she had made. But her body no longer cared. Every touch from him filled the emptiness her husband had left, every kiss reminding her she was still alive, still desired, still a woman aching for passion. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking with need. He pulled back just enough to meet her gaze, his eyes searching hers, filled with hunger, but also with something softer, deeper. "Tell me to stop," he breathed. Instead, she pulled him back to her, her lips crashing against his, her answer written in the way she clung to him, desperate and unwilling to let go. The world outside that tiny room ceased to exist. There was no office, no husband miles away, no guilt. Only the heat of his mouth, the press of his body, the fire roaring inside her as their forbidden passion consumed them both. Her lips were swollen from his kisses, her breath uneven as he trailed his mouth along her jawline, down to the delicate curve of her neck. Each brush of his lips sent waves of heat rushing through her body, making her arch into him. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, desperate to feel him everywhere at once. The soft hum of the office's air conditioner was the only sound apart from their ragged breathing. The world outside that copy room no longer mattered. Time felt suspended, every second stretching and burning with intensity. Ethan's hands slid under the hem of her blouse, his touch reverent yet hungry as he explored the bare skin of her waist, sending shivers across her body. "God, you're beautiful," he murmured against her skin, his voice low and rough with desire. She let out a shaky laugh, though her eyes glistened. "It's been a long time since anyone made me feel that way." His gaze softened, even as the fire in it burned brighter. "Then I'll remind you every chance I get." The sincerity in his words made her chest tighten, a bittersweet ache mixing with the raw hunger inside her. She tilted her head, capturing his lips again, their kiss deepening until it grew almost frantic, years of pent-up longing and loneliness crashing free in that moment. When his hands slid higher, skimming the lace of her bra, she gasped into his mouth, her back arching instinctively. The sound that left her throat made him groan, his body pressing harder against hers, his need undeniable. "Not here," she whispered breathlessly, her mind suddenly flashing to the risk of someone walking in. "We can't." His forehead rested against hers, his breathing ragged. "Then let me take you somewhere, anywhere. Just say yes." Her heart pounded, her body trembling with both fear and need. She should have said no. She should have walked away. But when she looked into his eyes and saw the desire, the hunger, the tenderness all tangled together, the word that fell from her lips was the one that sealed everything. Yes. Minutes later, they were in his car, the night streets blurring past as silence thickened between them. Her hands rested in her lap, but her body buzzed with electricity, every nerve alight with anticipation. He reached across the console, threading his fingers through hers, squeezing gently as if to reassure her. She clung to his hand, grateful for the steadiness, the unspoken promise that he wouldn't let her drown in guilt. When they pulled up to his apartment, her pulse quickened, her chest tight with nerves and desire. He led her inside quietly, the soft glow of lamps illuminating a space that felt warm and intimate. The door clicked shut behind them, and before she could catch her breath, his lips were on hers again, urgent and demanding, his hands roaming her body with a hunger that matched her own. She stumbled backward, laughing breathlessly as her back met the wall. His mouth devoured hers, then trailed downward, kissing the hollow of her throat, the curve of her collarbone, each touch sending shivers through her. She tugged at his shirt, desperate to feel his skin, and he pulled it over his head in one swift motion. Her eyes roamed his chest, his toned body lean yet strong, and she couldn't stop the soft moan that escaped her lips as her hands slid over his warm skin. He pressed closer, their bodies aligning perfectly, the heat between them undeniable. His hands moved to her blouse, fumbling at the buttons with urgency until it fell open, revealing the lace beneath. His breath caught as he looked at her, his gaze reverent, almost in awe. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this," he whispered, his hands tracing the curve of her waist, his thumbs brushing along her ribs. Her voice trembled as she answered, "Show me."
And he did.
His mouth claimed hers again before trailing downward, kissing the swell of her breasts through the lace, each touch making her body arch and her breath hitch. She clung to him, her fingers digging into his shoulders, as if he were the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. By the time he lifted her into his arms and carried her to his bedroom, she was trembling with anticipation, her body aching with a need that had been denied too long. He laid her gently on the bed, his eyes locked on hers, giving her every chance to stop it. But her answer came in the way she pulled him down to her lips finding his again, hungry and certain. Clothes became a blur, shed between desperate kisses and whispered names, until nothing separated them but the heat of their bodies. His touch was everywhere, slow, deliberate, worshipping every inch of her as though he were memorizing her, cherishing her. She gasped, moaned, whispered his name like a prayer, lost in the intensity of his devotion. When he finally entered her, it was as though the emptiness inside her shattered. Her gasp filled the room, his groan muffled against her neck as they moved together in a rhythm that felt inevitable, as though their bodies had been waiting for this all along. Each thrust, each kiss, each whispered word blurred the line between lust and something deeper, something terrifyingly real. Her nails raked down his back as waves of pleasure coursed through her cries mingling with his ragged moans. Time dissolved, nothing existing beyond their bodies, their hearts, the fire consuming them. When release finally tore through her, she clung to him desperately, her body trembling, her mind overwhelmed, her soul both terrified and alive in a way it hadn't been in years. Afterward, she lay tangled in his arms, their bodies slick with sweat, their breaths uneven. The guilt hovered faintly at the edges of her mind, but the warmth of his embrace silenced it, at least for now. He kissed her forehead softly, whispering, "You deserve to be loved like this. Always." Tears pricked her eyes, and she pressed her face into his chest, not ready to face the truth of what they had done, only knowing she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The days that followed blurred into a secret world of stolen touches, lingering glances, and whispered messages that made her pulse quicken. What began as a moment of weakness soon turned into afternoons spent tangled in his sheets, the kind of passion that left her body aching and her heart racing. They laughed together, held each other as though the world outside couldn't touch them, and each time she swore it would be the last. Yet each time, she went back for more. At the office, they perfected the art of pretending, professional smiles, casual words, distance maintained for the sake of appearances. But beneath the surface, every brush of his hand against hers, every glance across the conference table, every secret smile was enough to make her body ignite with memory and longing. The secrecy made it more dangerous, but also more intoxicating. Nights were the hardest. When she came home to the silence of her empty house, the bed where Daniel should have been felt like a graveyard of broken promises. She would stare at the ceiling, guilt whispering in one ear while the memory of Ethan's touch sang in the other. Her phone would sometimes buzz with a brief message, "I miss you," and she would lie there trembling, torn apart, but unable to stop herself from typing the words back, "I miss you too." One Friday evening, after a long week, she found herself once again at Ethan's apartment. They barely made it through the door before his lips were on hers, their bodies pressed together as though they'd been starved of each other for years instead of days. Clothes fell away, words dissolved into moans and whispers, and soon they were lost in the kind of passion that consumed them whole. Afterward, she lay sprawled across his chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns over his skin as he stroked her hair. For a moment, there was no guilt, no conflict, only peace. He kissed the top of her head, his voice tender and quiet. "You're not just a distraction to me, Linda. You're everything I never knew I needed." Her eyes stung, and she buried her face in his chest to hide the tears. She knew this couldn't last. She was still a wife, bound by vows she had broken, yet here in his arms she felt more like herself than she had in years. The affair continued in secret, each encounter more desperate, more consuming. They explored each other endlessly, finding new ways to express the hunger they shared, their bodies speaking a language more honest than any words. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in so long, desired, worshipped, cherished. One night, after hours of making love, she lay curled against him, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Her lips brushed his chest as she whispered, "I don't know where this ends." He tilted her chin, making her meet his eyes. "It ends when you want it to. Until then, I'm not letting go." Her body ached with exhaustion and satisfaction, her heart torn but her soul alight. In that moment, she realized that no matter what the future held, no matter how messy or painful the truth might become, she couldn't regret what they had. Because for the first time in years, she felt seen. For the first time in years, she felt alive. The night stretched on, filled with slow kisses and whispered confessions, their bodies entwined beneath the sheets. And as dawn painted the sky in soft shades of gold, she let herself surrender one last time, her moans echoing his name, her body arching into his as the forbidden love they shared consumed them both completely. Breathless, trembling, and utterly undone, she collapsed against him, her heart pounding, her skin slick with the evidence of their passion. His arms tightened around her, holding her as though she were the most precious thing in the world. In that final, hazy moment before sleep claimed her, she knew this wasn't just an affair. It was a fire that had been waiting to ignite, a secret that would forever change her life. And though the guilt still lingered, though the future was uncertain, she couldn't deny the truth. She had found love in the most forbidden place. And for now, in his arms, it was enough.